Today on Rewind, or Review, or whatever this is called, we're going to be talking about the original film that kicked it all off. I'm talking about 1999's The Phantom Menace, a truly scary, horrific film that will give you nightmares. Well, Jay, let's talk about the Blair Witch Project, which you've seen 38 times. I rewatched yesterday. I saw it in the theater.
So yesterday was the first time you've seen it since the theater?
Yes. You were the proponent of making a review episode about it, especially since...
Well, we got the new one coming out, yeah.
Which is very clearly a soft reboot.
It's a sequel. You know, it's the brother of the Heather character from the first movie going off to search for her. So it pleases people like me, and hopefully brings in new people that say, I've heard of Blair Witch. Mm-hmm. That's that movie that my dad tells me is boring.
But let us not forget there was a sequel to the Blair Witch Project, which came out 48 hours later.
Yes,
after
they
the first
slapped that shit together.
The Blair Witch Project 2 Coven of Witches?
Well, it's called Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2.
Oh.
But there's no Book of Shadows in the movie.
So they just gave him a bunch of money to license the title? It's probably a movie that was shot already.
No. It's ambitious as far as sequels go, because it's not a traditional sequel. The easy thing to do would have been just make another found footage thing, a bunch of kids out in the woods again. But it's a movie about the blurring lines between movie and reality that kind of came about with the first movie. So it's a movie about the reaction to the first movie, which is an interesting idea, but it's a bad movie anyway.
Didn't see it.
It's got bad acting, and it's not scary.
I saw it in the theater, and there was all the hoopla surrounding it. And like, it's a real thing. What? No, it's not a real thing.
Yeah.
I didn't see the online advertising, the whole marketing campaign. I know that was a big aspect of the movie's
viral marketing. It pretty much created it.
Yeah, and so I was like, "What's this?" They found footage a year after these people were killed in the woods. And I'm like, no, they didn't. No, I knew better, and I watched it, and I'm like, it's a little fake. Something's wrong there. That's not right. This isn't real. And then I was like, oh, that's a scary part. And then I was like, oh, that's it. And then I moved on with my life.
Okay.
And I can respect the ingenuity of the format.
Yeah.
How they made I'm sure there was some kind of found footage movie or idea that pre-existed Blair Witch?
There is, and we have to acknowledge that before the actually people show up. If you say Blair Witch Project made found footage popular, there's the actually. There's there's Cannibal Holocaust. And there's the last broadcast. I had to make sure that you knew that I knew that.
Okay.
So we got that out of the way. Those are movies that exist. We know.
There were other movies that existed, but as far as mainstreaming it into the horror genre, I think it was fairly groundbreaking.
The first, and that's why I was super excited to see it. I had heard about it months and months and months earlier because it played at Sundance and kind of made a big deal there. And so I was reading about it and hearing about it for months, and I was like, we got to go see this movie. I got a big group of friends, like a dozen of us went opening night, and it was before I knew it was going to blow up the way it did. And then half of them left completely bored and indifferent, and a couple of us thought it was really great. You look at all those other found footage movies, and they look like traditional movies, just done in a kind of first-person POV style. They've got clean audio. They sound like a movie. They have special effects. They all have the ghosts with the faces, the mouths that drop open really wide. They all go, Wah! And so I think people have been conditioned to think of that as being what a found footage movie is. And then you look at the Blair Witch Project, and it's like, oh no, there's a pile of rocks, and then that's the movie.
Yeah.
Woke up this morning, just 2 seconds ago, and there are piles of rocks outside of our tent.
They took time making it believable. Found footage movies now always have that one nagging question is, why are they still filming?
Yeah.
in certain situations, any rational person would just put their camera down and run for their fucking lives. In the Blair Witch Project, it's like, these are film students. The girl is the one in charge, and she's a documentarian. And documentarians are always trying to run their cameras.
Right.
And it's set up that they're like, okay, we're interviewing people, we're doing this, we're making a movie about what we're investigating.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple of lines thrown in here and there, like just when you start to question, like, why are they still filming?
No, she's still making movies, man. That's my point.
Please stop.
This is my point here.
That's all I fucking have left, okay? Just please stop.
There's some part where one of the guys, I don't know if it was Mike or Carlos?
Josh.
Josh, kind of grabs the camera.
They yell his name 50 times in the movie. How could you forget?
I don't know.
Josh! Josh! Josh!
Josh!
Josh!
Josh!
Josh! Josh!
I see why you like this video camera so much.
You do?
It's not quite reality. No, but it's totally like a filtered reality, man.
I see why you keep shooting with this. It's like looking through a prism of reality. You know, I'm like, okay.
It's one of those lines too, because I like that part because yeah, it gives a little bit of an excuse, but it's also sort of pretentious, but that's okay because these are pretentious film students.
Yeah.
Especially Heather.
Yet no one in the town seems to recall anything unusual about this time. To us, anyway. Yet legend tells a different story. One whose evidence is all around us. Etched in stone.
The reason I think this movie feels more authentic than a lot of them is because so much of it, to a certain extent, was real. They were camping overnight in these woods. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to shoot these scenes and we'll go back to, you know, our hotel room or whatever. They were camping out overnight, and the whole thing is improvised.
Well, what is the story behind it then? Because I don't know. Like, did they just give them cameras and say, and the director's like fucking around with them in the woods?
Basically, yeah.
Oh, okay.
They would leave, from what I understand, the directors would leave, yeah, they'd kind of keep an eye on them from a distance in the woods. And then overnight, while they're sleeping or whatever, they would fuck with them. You know, they had boom boxes, so when you hear like little children laughing, those are voices on a boom box. Like, it's so low tech. But then the next morning, they would have little envelopes for each of the actors saying, like, here's kind of where your character is at, here's what we want you to do today. And then everything else was basically up to them. So the framing of the shots, the way the movie looks, the dialogue.
There were two separate noises coming from two layers of space over here, and one of them was kind of like, one of them could have possibly been an owl, but the other one was like a cackling. It was a total cackling, man.
If I heard a cackling, I would have shit in my pants.
It was an original, inventive way to make a movie.
Yeah, especially with no money.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. Some people complain about the fact that you don't see anything, and that's like the best aspect of it.
I completely understand that point of view and that idea that something that is not seen can be scarier than just like bah, monster. Bah.
The longmouth ghost.
I think some of the angle with Blair Witch might be in the backstory and not giving me enough information because it's so disjointed in terms of editing. It's like, yeah, it spent a little too much time, like in the first 10 minutes or so is the first part of the movie when they're on their way, stopping at hotels, driving, interviewing people on the street. The only two that didn't feel authentic were the guys that were fly fishing.
I thought the old guy was good. The younger guy, he feels like local theater actor.
Yeah, this, but you know what? As far as the performances in the movie and not like sticking out as phony, they did a very good job. But it was like she's talking about the legend, and did you know about the Blair Witch? Oh yeah, I heard about it. The Blair Witch. I never really got a good sense of what it was. And then they mentioned the serial killer in the 40s that did the murders.
Yes. Rustin Parr.
Yeah, and so
yeah, there's a whole. Well, that's where the website came in. Was there's such a whole mythology that they only hint at in the movie.
Okay, so you're supposed to go to the supplemental material in order to get something out of the movie.
Well, to get more out of it. I mean, I think you get enough. I like that the movie is so vague with a lot of those things because I didn't know that. Like, I never really looked at the website until after I saw the movie too. To me, it was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. It's like I want to learn more about this. But I like that it's disjointed in the way where it's like, oh, all these different people in the town are saying all these different things. So it's like no one really knows. It's just all these stories and all these legends. And there's that fear of the unknown that I think comes into play in that movie that a lot of movies over-explain.
The symbol is associated with a pagan deity named Bagul.
This mark on your hand, it says rebirth.
There was like, with every nightfall that came, so it would get worse and worse and worse, whatever it was.
Right.
And then they ended up finding that house, which was clearly an abandoned house, which may or may not have been the house of the serial killer. So we all know about the ending with the guy in the corner.
Yes. Serial
Killer would make the one little kid stand in the corner because he didn't like them watching him while he killed the other kid.
Right.
That was the legend about the serial killer, but it wasn't the legend about the witch. So I don't know. I was like, yeah, we don't know what's going on. Something scary is happening, but I want to know what I'm supposed to be scared of. It'd be like watching Jaws and somebody ate somebody. There's a
that
thing.
would be pretty fucking scary too, though, if there's something in the water and you don't know what it is.
Or the mayor's closing the beach. Why? Because.
Well, that's going to an extreme.
Well, yeah, we're gonna
if
need
you
a
had
bigger...
something in the water that you never see, but you know there's something in there that's eating people, I think that's scary by itself too, without knowing it's a shark.
Until Josh disappears, we didn't know anybody's in danger.
Well, that's how we know that shit's getting real. It's not just someone fucking with them. It's not just like a redneck messing with them.
I guess that's introduced too. I didn't know what the Blair Witch. I was not clear on what exactly the Blair Witch legend is.
Okay.
So like you know, like the what is it? Bloody Mary.
Yeah.
You say Bloody Mary 3 times in the mirror in the dark, and then the 3rd time she comes out and gets you.
Right.
Have they made a movie about that yet?
I'm sure they've made multiple movies about it.
And there's all those urban legends, and the Blair Witch urban legend. I didn't know what it was.
Well, that's because they made it up.
Well, but they could have made up an urban legend. If you go into the woods and you find a stick figure. And, you know, that means that someone will die in, you know, the next 24 hours, or unless you find 2 more stick figures and then blah, 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 blah. So, something like some sort of legend that made sense in the context of the movie, that the filmmakers had some kind of goal or set of logical parameters.
But then you get more into the realm of traditional movie, and it would feel more like a movie, and that sort of defeats the trying to make it more like a grounded, real thing.
I guess so.
Like if you're out in the woods and you find all these weird stick figures, you have no idea what they are, where they came from, or why they're there. That's creepy to me.
If they're
more so, you know, than in a traditional movie where you have the character up front that explains it all, and then you get there, and I mean that works in a traditional movie, and that works in a traditional horror movie. But with what this movie is trying to do, I think that would be a detriment.
Yeah, I'm definitely not advocating for more exposition, but after a while, it does become a slog. What's happening now? Oh God, I don't know what's happening. If the whole movie was secretly about Josh, who goes insane and hits Heather over the head with a rock while she's holding her camera in the basement of a house.
But
it could be.
It could be.
There could be no Blair Witch.
Yep.
One of the 3 could have gone completely insane from being lost in the woods for 3 days and having that lady yapping in his fucking ear the whole time.
What the fuck are you out of your fucking mind?
And smashed her over the head with a rock.
Yeah.
And there was no supernatural element to it whatsoever. That's very possible.
Sure.
Very possible. And then it's brilliant. And I guess the ambiguity could lead you to all sorts of conclusions, and that's fine. But as an entertainment piece, there is a lot of where are we? Lost the map. What's happening? And
It doesn't work for every movie, but for me, that works perfectly in this movie. Like, especially when you look at it from the perspective of, like, we just found all these tapes in the woods, you know, we found this footage. You know, it's just random moments that these characters filmed. You're not going to get all the information. So
yeah, I get you.
And that's what, for me, still sets it apart from all these other bullshit found footage movies, is that it has that element, that ambiguity, that realism. Performance-wise, I think it's great. There's a sort of a rawness to it that you don't see in a lot of traditional horror movies.
Yeah.
Or movies in general.
And I'm very scared and I just want to go home, okay?
Okay.
But I'm fine and we're both okay. Ow, my hair is gone.
We should also bring up the first Paranormal Activity movie, which I don't even know when that was. Not too long ago, right?
2007 or so?
6, 7, 8.
Yeah, something like that.
And that also was boring as fuck, where not too much happened.
Yeah.
So I guess there is a case for the horror genre of, like, not seeing things and waiting, as opposed to the demonic nun coming at you that you see in Conjuring 2.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's 2016 now, and this new Blair Witch movie is gonna have blah, 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 all over the place.
I'm hoping there's something more clever to it. Based on the filmmaker's previous work, my expectations are higher than they would be if I just saw a trailer made by nobody for Blair Witch 2 or whatever it's called.
That's fair.
Blair Witch. I'd be rolling my eyes.
I'd be very happy if they did something minimalistic with it. I think I saw the trailer, and I just remember people running and.
It's lots of screaming, lots of loud sounds.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a trailer. They got to sell it as scary. So
yeah. I don't know what to make of it yet, but my cynical side says that it's going to have a demonic nun.
That would be very surprising if a demonic nun showed up in the Blair Witch Project.
Josh? I hear him downstairs. Come on! I hear him downstairs! Come on! Josh!
Well, the question is, does this movie hold up?
Nope.
Is it because rewatching it, I hadn't watched it in a few years, so rewatching it, I was not surprised, but it was made more clear to me just how quaint it is now. This was a huge pop culture phenomenon. There had never been anything like it, and now you see it, and it's just so simple that I wonder if someone who's grown up with Paranormal Activity and Grave Encounters and all that shit, all those movies, would watch this in the same way that someone that grew up on all the, like, slasher movies and look back on the original Halloween and say, this is boring.
It's a tough question. It's a tough question because there are a lot of things that hold up well over time, and there are different reasons why. I withdraw my no, and I would say the marketing element was a detriment insofar as saying, does it hold up? Because to me, that was part of a gimmick that sold the movie at the time, was that little voice in the back of your head going, is this real? Most people not knowing. Now that we know 100% that it's not real, the spookiness of it is somewhat diminished. I'm not a big fan of the characters in the Blair Witch. They are not strong characters to me.
I don't know. I like them all. They're not fleshed out any more than they need to be for what the movie is. So.
That's fine. That's your opinion. I'm not a fan of them, and I'm fuzzy on the mythology and the legend of the Blair Witch and exactly what is going on. So a lot of that falls into the wayside, and then the big, like, this is what needs to hold up is the format and the style, and this is a found footage. And that to me does seem dated a little.
Yeah. Well, and another question is it scary? Like, that's ultimately, with the horror film, you want to know, is it scary? And I can't, like, objectively say, because I'm so familiar with the movie at this point. So I think it just depends on what you're looking for and what scares you. So it's hard to say.
The original Halloween is still scary.
Yeah, to a certain extent. I bet a 20-year-old would not think so.
I see that's the thing is I was just thinking like when you're talking right now, if we grabbed a room of 20-year-olds who have never seen the Blair Witch, put them in a theater, took all their phones away, of course, closed the doors and said, "This really happened."
Yeah.
You know, maybe find out which ones have never ever heard of this movie, and say this is real, and just to see if with removing all technology and things from the modern day, and just sitting them down and making them watch the movie, if they would enjoy it and be scared, or would the initial concept of what they were intending back in '99, of this is a real thing, this is their real footage, would it actually scare someone? Again, I think if you sat someone down who never saw Halloween and said, "Watch this," that image of Michael Myers and him coming after her in the house is still pretty scary. I don't know. It's very, very subjective on what is scary and what isn't. I remember I watched when they re-released Exorcist.
Oh yeah, that was an interesting experience in the theater.
Yeah, the whole theater was laughing.
A lot of people were laughing, and it still worked for me.
It's something that I would love to scientifically analyze and do multiple rounds of testing and
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. For me, I think like when you, especially now and comparing it to everything that came out, there's more of an influence from Paranormal Activity. Like after Blair Witch, there wasn't a bunch of found footage movies. It was after Paranormal Activity. But you look at all those movies and every one of them feels phony. They just feel like movies. And for me, Blair Witch Project as just an execution of an idea of this is what it's supposed to be, this is what we did. For me, I think it works perfectly.
And that's the respect I have for it, is a pretty flawless execution of a very original idea. Is it scary to me? Not so much, but they did a darn good job. That's one thing we can't stoop to, is just mocking the movie for being boring.
Oh no, I don't think the movie is boring. I know people did because they wanted more traditional scares or whatever, but I think the movie has a nice escalation of these characters slowly losing their minds. I think the ending, everything in the house, them searching the house, I think that whole ending is a great climax for that story, for that movie.
Well, let's do something new on review. Because as we discussed, I want to do some research. So you out there in our viewing audience, if you are a young person, let's say in your 20s.
Early 20s.
Early 20s, and you have never seen the Blair Witch Project, you don't know much about it, you've probably heard the title. Get it, rent it, whatever, borrow it from a friend, sit in your little home, turn off all your lights, shut off your cell phone, and just sit down and watch the movie. Don't be on your laptop while it's on. Don't fuck around. Just sit and watch the movie in the dark with no distractions, and then post a comment on this YouTube channel on your thoughts on if you found it scary.
Yeah.
Even though we spoiled everything, but ignore that part. Just curious if the tone and the mood, the editing, the pacing, all the elements that make a movie flow, if it scared you, or if you felt tension, unease, fear, all the emotions that come with watching a good horror film. Just be curious to know, because you and I are older and cynical, and we know all the mechanics of a movie, and we know when something works and when it doesn't, and all that. But
sure. Which this is a harder movie to judge in that respect, because it isn't a traditionally made movie.
Right.
So I think there is more of a mood to it than a general scariness.
Right.
They really lucked out with the weather, because I mean they shot this movie in like 8 days and that was it, which is kind of crazy when you think about it too. The fact that it blew up the way it did, just this little thing that was made in 8 days, but in those 8 days, it's overcast, It's the fall, all the leaves are dead, it rains a few times. They got perfect weather for their horror film.
Yeah. But that's the Blair Witch Project, competing with such films in 1999 as The Matrix and Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and
American Pie, that was a big movie that came out at the time.
Yep, and
lots of big movies in '99.
The movie where John McClane is a ghost. I'm Dead.
Spoilers.
Dead Hard.
Dead Hard? Is that the title for it? Okay.
Yeah. Maybe John McClane was a ghost in all the Die Hard movies, too.
Oh, shit.
That's why they had such a hard time shooting him with machine guns.
How does Haley Joel Osment fit into all this?
Haley Joel Osment can barely fit in his clothes. I don't know.